Video, audio, podcasting at democracynow.org. Seymour Hersh is our guest, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist for the New Yorker magazine. He has an explosive new piece called The Redirection. Before we go to the planning group that is ready to attack Iran within the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I want to ask you about this group of players you've laid out, Sy. You're talking about Elliot Abrams, about Prince Bandar, and their connections to 20 years ago to the Iran-Contra scandal. Explain.
Well, it's interesting. One of my favorite paragraphs in the story, it's unsourced, but it describes a meeting within the last 2 years that Elliot Abrams called. Elliot Abrams, as some may remember, was a key player. He was in the Reagan White House in the National Security Council. And what happened is 20-some-odd years ago, Ronald Reagan wanted very much to stop what he saw as the revolutionary government of Nicaragua, the Sandinista government. He thought they were pro-communist. It's a little bit like the Chavez issue today. And the CIA began supporting a group of opposition people known as the Contras, a pretty violent bunch of people. Congress authorized an amendment called the Boland Amendment. The congressman they passed an amendment saying no money for the Contras. So instead of adhering to that, the government then, if you remember the name Ollie North and the National Security Advisor John Poindexter, set up a sort of a Rube Goldberg scheme to sell arms through Israel to Iran. The Iranians were our bitter enemies at that time. We were only 7 years from the overthrow of the Shah and the capture of our embassy people. If you remember, they were kept for more than a year. And the idea was to generate profits that would, the sale would generate a lot of profits that would be used to fund the Contras. Well, this, of course, blew up in everybody's face. There were sort of inconclusive hearings in the Senate. A few people were charged. I don't remember. Nothing much came out of it. They never got to the bottom of it. Nobody wanted to go after Reagan. It was 87, et cetera, whatever happened. So 2 years ago, Abrams, who's still now in the government, even more important than ever, very conservative, Elliot Abrams, pro-Israel, et cetera, he convened a meeting of all of those people in the Bush administration who had been connected to Iran-Contra. It was like a reunion, somebody said to me. And they did a lessons learned. What was the good thing? Well, the good thing is you could do things outside of Congress who would stop you. Those bad guys in Congress, you could do things for the good of the nation. That was the plus. The negatives were pretty extreme because, of course, it got blown. Let's see. The negatives included you don't trust your friends. You don't trust the uniformed military. You don't trust the CIA. And you don't let it be run by the NSC, by somebody like Poindexter. You move it into the vice president's office, Cheney's office. I gather that was the time that they began thinking about this possibility. And obviously they were talking to Bandar all along, as I say, the former ambassador. He later became, when he left, he became the National Security Advisor of Saudi Arabia, sort of a surprise job, a new job they set up for him. And I think at that point, some point a long time ago, they began thinking about doing what they're doing now, using Saudi money and some of the American funds from wherever they get it, whether Iraq or other pools. There's a lot of black pools of money around, undeclared pools, using American and Saudi money without going to Congress for anything to fund the kind of operations they want to fund, as I was describing, against Hezbollah, against et cetera. And so this is the genesis, if you will, history. You know, of course, I've never known an American government to learn from history. And once again, they haven't. They've now done another Rube Goldberg scheme here. I just don't know if Congress, I can assure you that Congress knows very little about what's going on now in Iran. They're not being briefed. They know nothing about the money going in there. At least I've been told by members who are in a position to know. There's been no real findings.
So will they hold hearings?
Oh, will anybody do anything? I don't know. You know, you pump out this stuff. I started writing about Iran, I think, almost a year ago, about covert operations in Iran. And for the longest time, I felt a little bit like Chicken Little. You know, the guy running around saying the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Well, now a lot of people are very interested in Iran. But still, I haven't seen, as you know, there's a vibrant, in Europe, this story like I write is huge, and this story is huge around the world. But it's hard to, you know, the major newspapers have troubles because I don't think it's because they don't want to burn the story. They can't find people that will verify for them because this is such inside stuff, I guess.
Seymour Hersh, can you talk about the planning group within the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
That is nothing new, really. It's just the same old story. That's all contingency planning. There's been no execute order. In other words, there's no order to stop bomb Iran. The president has now, a lot of the planning was done at a place in Virginia, a joint a very secret joint staff facility where the services would get together and discuss what to hit. And they moved it within the last few months. They've set up a special cell inside the Joint Chiefs, very secret. That's sort of normal. Everything's secret in there. And they've been giving a number of at least two new developments have taken place. One is the President or the White House has asked for a bombing raid that can be put on within 24 hours. What can we hit if the President wakes up one morning and scratches something and says, I want to go? What can you do in the next 24 hours? They've done that, or they are doing that. The other significant change is the debate all along about bombing internally, with the Air Force being very much for it and a lot of the other services being very much against it. There's been tremendous dissension about this in the Joint Chiefs. The initial targeting was what they call counter-proliferation. That is against the Iranian nuclear targets. As you know, Iran is a member of the non-proliferation regime and has released and made public all of its facilities, at least it's declared many facilities, perhaps not all, but they say it's all, to the International Atomic Energy Agency. So using what we know from the IAEA, we've targeted a lot of things that we would destroy in case of a major assault. There's also been something called regime change targeting. The wonderful word they use inside this in the system is decapitation. You go after leadership nodules. You hit the leaders where they live, where they work, and you get rid of the top layer of the mullahs running the government, and presumably in the fantasy land that exists among the neocons, the people then rush and take over, and they set up a democratic Iran that's secular and pro-American. But what's happened in the last month or two in the wake of the president's new campaign, that's very clear, since January 10th, I think, when he made a speech, we've seen an absolute drumbeat of allegations that Iran is involved in operations directly against America and responsible for killing Americans. You know, this stuff about the bombs that they give. And I think it's Article 51 of the UN. I see it, some of my friends see this as a legal argument the president's making. Under the UN articles, you have a right of self-defense. And if some country is killing your troops or acting against them, you can attack them. That seems to be one of the bases for why the president is saying what he's saying. The Iranians are all over Iraq. They've been all over Iraq. There's thousands inside Iraq at any time. They were there very early, walking around in black suits, white shirts with no ties, black shoes, white socks. They're very clear. They're not hiding themselves. Many did humanitarian things and other social things, really. Iran has a strong presence in Iran has a strong presence in Iraq and has all along. There's no evidence they're shooting guns. They're certainly helping to supply them, et cetera, which, of course, makes sense for Iran. Why shouldn't they? The longer we are stalemated in Iraq, the better it is for them. They're the winners of this war. So in any case, the president then asked for a new wave of targeting to take place. That is, targeting against terrorism targets inside Iran. I'm not sure what they're talking about. Maybe base camps, etc. And we've also, since last summer, dramatically increased cross-border operations, very aggressive activities, sometimes hot pursuit of what we claim are Iranians. We're attacking the border more, going across more and more. There's some people who think we could be looking for some sort of a response by Iran that would cause us belli so that we can do some actual physical assault with some justification. It's not clear. I'm not clear why we're being more aggressive. It seems I guess common sense would tell you maybe we are looking for some response, but the Iranians have not done it.
And Iran has just accused the United States of attacking and killing 11 Iranian soldiers.
Well, this is part of the game. And don't forget, as I wrote, I hate to say it, but as I wrote a year ago, we've been deeply involved with Azeris and Baluchis and Iranian Kurds in terror activities inside the country. I mean, this is... of course, the Israelis have been involved in a lot of that through Kurdistan. So this has been going on for a year. Iran's been having sort of a series of backdoor fights, the Iranian government, because they have a significant minority population. Not everybody there is a Persian. If you add up the Azeris and Baluchis and Kurds, you're really 30-something, or maybe even 40% of the country.